Yim Yavon El Menukati. Page 13. Shiru Ladonai Shir Kadash, Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Baruchu Shemo Basru Miyom Leyom Yeshuato, Psaparu Bagoyim Kevodo Bechol Amim Niflotav, Ki Gadol Adonai Umuhu Al Meod, Norahu Al Kol Elohim, Ki kol Elohei ha'amim elilim v'Adonai shamayim asa hod v'hadar lefonav oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho habul Adonai mishpachot amim habul Adonai kavod v'oz habul Adonai kavod shemo suminka uvo l'chatzrotav Ishtakavu l'Adonai b'hadrat kodesh kidum mipanav kol haaretz imril b'goyim Adonai malach haftikon tevel ba'al timot yadin amin b'meisharim yismachu hashamayim b'tagel haaretz Yiram hayam umalo yalos sadai b'kol asher bo haz yirananu kol atzei ya'ar Ibnei Adonai giva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel b'tzedek, v'amim be'emunato. 97, Psalm 97 on page 15, if you have a book. Adonai rings, let the earth be glad, let the many distant lands rejoice. For cloud and darkness surround the divine, righteousness and justice secure God's throne. Fire goes before God, consuming besiegers round about. Flashes lightning illumine the land. The earth watches and trembles. Mountains melt just like wax at the approach of Adonai, the approach of the Master of all the earth. The heavens tell of God's righteousness, and all the nations see God's glory. And worshippers of idols are shamed for praising false gods. All that is deemed supreme must bow before God. Zion hears of it and rejoices. The cities of Judah exult, for you, Adonai, pass judgment. O have Adonai sin ura shomer nafshot chasidav miyad rishaim yatzilem or zaru ala tzadiku yishrei simcha simchu tzadikim b'Adonai v'hodu lezecher kodsho. On page 17 we have Psalm 98. Sing to God a new song, for Adonai has wrought wonders. God's right hand and holy arm have brought deliverance. God declared deliverance as the nations looked on. God's righteousness was revealed. God dealt faithfully and kindly with the house of Israel. The very ends of the earth saw God's saving power. Call out to Adonai, all the earth. Break out in joyful singing. Sing to Adonai to the music of the lyre. Lyre and voices making music together with horns and shofar cries. Trumpet the presence of Adonai. V'chatzotzrot v'kol shovar ariu livnei hamelech Adonai Yiram hayamum lo devel v'yosheveva Ne'arot imcha uchaf yachad harim yiranenu Livnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz Yishpot tevel b'tzedek Amim b'meisharim. And finally, Psalm 99 on page 19. Adonai malach yirgezu amim yoshe gruvim tanud haaretz Adonai b'tzion gadol ramal kol ha'amim. Exalt Adonai our God, bow down before God, the Holy One. Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called on the divine name, called to you, Adonai, and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. You kept your covenant and the law that you gave them. Adonai Eloheinu atah nidam el nosei Etz Ahayem enokim ala lilotam. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu b'shakabu ladom v'hishtakabu lehar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. And here is a Sephardic melody for Psalm 29, page 21. Mizmor leDavid, Avud Adonai b'nei Elim, Avud Adonai kavod va'os, Avud Adonai kavod shmo, Yishach Avud Adonai b'hadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shober arazim, Shaber Adonai et arzei halabanon, Ayar kidem kemo egel, Levanon v'siryon kemo ven reimim. Kol Adonai chotzev lahavoresh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot, hayekasov ye'arot, uv'heichalo kulo omer kavod, kulo omer kavod. Adonai lamabul yashav, Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yirein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. And that brings us to Lechadodi. So that starts on 23, 3 more on 24, and 3 more on 25. Hold on to your yarmulkes. We're going to do the fast Hasidic versions. Lechadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor b'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi anu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem ultiver v'lita hila. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lehu v'nei lecha, Ki hi mekor haberacha, Merosh mikerem nisucha, Sov maaseh b'machshvat akila. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, Ki kumitzi mitocha hafecha, Rav lach shevet be'emek habacha, V'hu yakmol alayich kamlam. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Yid horari me'afar kumi, Liv shivigdei tifartechami, Al yad ben Yishai beit alachmi, Korba el nafshi ge'ala. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hid orari, Kiva ore, kumi ori, uri, shirda beri, gebodet anaya laik nikla. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Second melody. Lo, 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 tevo, shiva, lo, lo, ti kalmi, ma, ti shochachi, uma tehemi, bach, kechasu, ani, ami, v'nivnata, ir, al, tira, lecharori, likrad, kala, Pene Shabbat Kabbalah. And on 25, the third melody. Hayu l'shimsa, so saich baracha kukol, miv alaich, yasis alaich, Elohaich, kim sos katana kala, lechadodi, lihikat pene Shabbat nekabala, yaminu smol, tivrotzi ve'et Adonai, ta'aritzi al yarish, ben parzi, ben ismecha v'nagila, lechadodi, lihikat pene Shabbat nekabela. We turn to the back door and greet Shabbat as she symbolically comes through the door. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, toch emunei, am segula. We bow to the left. Boi chala. Right. Boi chala. Lechadori. Likat kala. Pene Shabbat nekabela. Lechadori. Likat kala. Pene Shabbat nekabela. Now, picture 600 campers and 200 staffers all dressed in white singing that at Camp Ramah, even faster. And then all of a sudden, slamming on the brakes on the top of page 27, although this prayer book had not been invented yet, and in 20-part harmony, Mizmor Shir, Mizmor Shir, Le'yom HaShabbat, Mizmor Shir, Mizmor Shir, Le'yom HaShabbat. And it would go on. Tov lo dov ladonai uzamer l'shing ba'elyon agid ba'boker gazdecha v'emunatecha ba'leilot. But that was always left to the older campers and the staff. So we have some beautiful English on 27 and 28. Let's share that instead. It is good to thank you, Adonai, to sing to your name, Most High, to proclaim your love at daybreak and your faithfulness each night. You're welcome to be seated for this, by the way. Finger the lute, pluck the harp, let the sound of the lyre rise up. For you gladden me with your deeds, Adonai, and I shall sing of your handiwork. How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs. The arrogant do not understand, the foolish do not comprehend. The wicked may flourish like grass, and evildoers blossom, only to be destroyed forever. But you, Adonai, are exalted for all time. Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered. As a wild bull raises its horn, you raised my head high, anointed it with fragrant oil. As my enemies gather against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen to this and hear. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like the cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in God's courtyards. And this is how we sing this. Tzadi karamar yifrach, keherez balvanon yiske shetulim bebeit Adonai b'chatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenubun b'seva yeshenim rananim yiyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri tzuri velo ablatabo. And we conclude our Kabbalat Shabbat section with Psalm 93 on page 29. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest times you were enthroned, Adonai, for you are eternal. The rivers rise up and raise their roar. The rivers raise up their waves, but above the roar of the vast sea and majestic breakers of the ocean, Adonai stands supreme in the heavens. Mikol hodmaim rabim, adirim mishberei yam, adir bamarom Adonai, edotecha ne'emnenumot, leveiteka navakoresh Adonai, leorech yamim. So, my understanding is that you are used to a little bit of sermon at this point, as a break between the preliminary service of Friday night and the main service. What I have done is give my main service on Saturday mornings, right after chanting Torah and Haftarah, but I have brought with me each Friday night an overview of the entire portion, just to give you some idea of what are some of the things that are talked about in any particular Torah portion. So, this is Parshat Re'eh, and it begins with a blessing and a curse in the end of chapter 11. And there's actually a whole little ceremony a little bit later in Deuteronomy that kind of concretizes the concepts of blessing and of curse. But to summarize it, basically, we are blessed when we obey God, do what God wants us to, and at least our ancestors were cursed when they succumbed to idolatry. For us, I think we have other things that we maybe do wrong that God lets us know he's not happy about. Then we get into chapter 12, and that is the beginning of what my main sermon is going to be about tomorrow, which is the concept that worship should be at a central site. So I'm not going to give away how that may have come about quite yet, but simply to tell you that chapter 12 is very clear. It no longer is okay to do the sacrifices wherever the tabernacle happens to be camped with all the Israelites around it in the middle of the Sinai wilderness. That at some point in the future, hint, hint, there should be a central site established. And sure enough, as you'll find out tomorrow morning, there was one. Meanwhile, it also has a little bit of a review of some of the kashrut rules, a little bit here and even more in chapter 14, I'll mention briefly. Basically, it says that when meat is eaten, the lifeblood has to be poured out, because that is sacred to God. And in the context of that, because the neighbors did use blood in their sacrifices, They also sacrifice children, and of course that is a huge no-no for the Israelites. Chapter 13 talks about the fact that false prophets will entice idolatry, worshiping pagan idols. And there will be severe results for those enticers. And in fact, entire towns might wind up being destroyed if too many people decide to worship idols instead of God in a particular town. But chapter 14 is a bit of I'm not going to say a total review of chapter 11 of Leviticus, but it's parallel. And it talks about the four-footed animals that we can eat. Leviticus is more clear about chewing cud and having a split hoof, but I believe it's briefly mentioned in this chapter 14 of Deuteronomy. And fish, of course, have to have both fins and scales, and that is repeated. It actually goes into a little bit more detail about predatory birds that we shouldn't be eating. And chapter 14 ends with an instruction to make sure that we feed the Levites. The way we do that is, since they didn't have farms, we bring sacrifices to the temple, the future temple, to the tabernacle when this was supposedly written, and we share part of the food with the Levites and part of the food with the poor, by the way. Chapter 15 is a very crucial one. It talks about the seventh year, and it introduces the concept that this past year has been, which is a Shemitah year, remission of debts, freeing servants, and it goes through a whole ceremony. If a servant decides they want to stay with you, there's a way of handling that, as long as it's the servant's free will to stay. And it reminds us that the preferred animals for sacrifices should be the firstborns. And finally, at the very end of Parshat Re'eh, it talks a little bit about what we now know as Passover. Once again, a concept of a centralized place for sacrifice and eating matzah for 7 days, which is what they do in Israel, and the fact that the other two pilgrimage festivals are Shavuot and Sukkot. Shavuot in the spring at the end of the spring harvest, and Sukkot in the fall at the end of the summer harvest, which was mostly dates which could be smushed into honey, and olives which could be smushed into olive oil, and grapes which could be smushed into wine. So, come back tomorrow for more details of one little piece of this, and I have a sermon to reinforce the part that I chose to chant tomorrow. So, let us, before we lose power again, let us move into the main part of the service on page 39A. Looks like it's a little more complete. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'arim b'chok moprei asher rimu b'tbuna mishanei edim u'machali bet hazmanim v'sader et kochavim mishmeroteim rakia kirtzono. Praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, and wisdom opens the gates of dawn. Understanding changes the days of division, whose will, heavenly will, sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky. By creating day and night, you roll light away before darkness, and darkness before light. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uben laila, Adonai tzavot shemo, El Chai v'kayam, tamidim lo chaleinu l'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai, Hama'ari v'aravim. page 40, we can chant Tavat Olam. It's transliterated if it's useful on the left-hand side. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amachavta Torah Mitzvot Chukim Umishpatim Otanu Limarada Al Kein Adonai Eloheinu Shokbeinu Kumeinu Nasiach Bechukecha V'nismak B'divrei Toradecha U'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu ve'orech yameinu ve'hem nehegei yomam v'layla yomam v'layla ve'ahabarecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. And 41. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And this will chant in trope. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha V'chol lebavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha Ve'hayu advarim ha'ele Asher anochi mitzavvecha hayom al levavecha V'shinadam levanecha v'dibartavam Shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shoch b'cha uv'kumecha Kshertam lod al yadecha v'hayu letotafo b'neinecha Uktavtam hamzuzot b'eidecha uv'isharecha. And on 42, we'll do the long second paragraph to ourselves, and then we will chant the third paragraph. Himei hashamayim al haaretz Vayomer Adonai al Moshe lemor Daber al bnei Yisrael v'yamarta alehem v'yasu lahem tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem ledorotam v'natenu al tzitzit hakanaf petil techelet V'haya lachem litzitzit Uritem oto Zkartem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam V'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem Asher atem zonim achareihem Lema'an tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'idem gedoshim le'elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiyot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem. So we have a redemption prayer following the Shema on page 43a. This is our enduring affirmation binding upon us, that Adonai is our God and there is none other. We, Israel, are God's people. God is our sovereign, redeeming us from earthly rulers, delivering us from the hand of all tyrants, bringing judgment upon our oppressors and retribution upon our enemies, performing wonders beyond understanding and marvels beyond all reckoning. God places us among the living, not allowing our steps to falter, and leads us past the false altars of our enemies, exalting us above all those who hate us. Adonai avenged us with miracles before Pharaoh, God offered signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. God smote in anger Egypt's firstborn, brought Israel from its midst to lasting freedom, and led them through divided water of the Sea of Reeds. As their pursuers and enemies sank into the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine and praised and acknowledged God's name. And we will continue with that on the top of 44. Umalchuto b'ratzon gibelu alehem Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael alechanu shir ra b'simcha raba v'yameru chulam Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nehar ba'kodesh Nodra tehilot O seifele Nodra tehilot O seifele Malchut HaKarov Anecha Bokei Ayam Nemne Moshe u'Miriam Zeli anu v'yameru Adonai yimlok le'olam Vayed V'nemar Kivad Adonai et Yaakov Ugalo Miat Chazak Mimenu Baruch Ad Adonai Ka'al Yisrael. And an extra prayer in the evening time, asking God to take care of us at night. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully and awaken us tomorrow to life again, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace and restore us with your good counsel. Save us for the sake of your name and shield us. Remove from us enemies, pestilence, swords, starvation, sorrow. Remove evil forces which surround us. And rather shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ushmor tzeiteinu v'oinu l'chaim u'shalom me'ata be'ad olam ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Baruch Ad Adonai, Aporeis Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, El Golamo Yisrael, V'al Yerushalayim. And on 46, here is a very calm, quiet, and peaceful melody for Rishamru, very fitting for asking God to watch over us on Shabbat. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asor et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael ot Hileolam Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashavi Shabbat vayinafash uvayom hashavim Shabbat vayinafash. Our silent Amidah goes from 47 through 52. here's a nice quiet melody for Oseh Shalom on page 52. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. And there's a little bit of a kind of mini repetition of the Amidah that starts on 53. Vayechulu hashamayim b'haaretz v'kol tziva'am vaychal Elohim bayom hashavi'i melakto asher asa vayishbot bayom hashavi'i mikol melakto asher asa vayvarek Elohim et yom hashavi'i vaykadesh oto ki bo shabbat mikol melakto Ivo Shabbat Mikol Melakto Asher Bara Elohim La'asot. And according to my notes, that is about what we can do without a minyan. We will do Kiddush out in the hallway afterwards. So let us go to Aleinu, which is on 56 and 57. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that the ark is being opened here. Oh yes, that does show up in the screen. So, Aleinu shabeach radon hakol, latei kedula leotzer bereshit, shelo sanu kegoye aratzo, shelo samanu kumishpakot adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kakol amonam, V'anachnu koreim u'mishachavim u'morim lifnei melech malkei hamelachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu nudei shamayim v'yosei haaretz moshav v'karov hashamayim u'mimal shkina rizot v'goavei meromim hu Eloheinu einod emet malkeinu efasulato kakatu b'dorato v'yadayim v'hashevota el levavecha Ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim u'mimal v'al haaretz mitachat ein od al kein Kabbalat Adonai. V'ponech Adonai g'ochin koyin dimlo chaleim yom malchut shel gahi u'lol me'adim lo v'go gagadu v'doradecha Adonai yimlok le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'yadonai le'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yihiyeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. So close the ark here. I have a yahrzeit list to read. I haven't buried it. Here we go. And we will do Psalm 23 on page 337. So, this back. Our yahrzeit list for this week is Ruben Franco, Julia Hanan, Miriam Kraselski-Schreiber, Morris Fast, Jacob Hasson, Leah Rosen, George Daniels, Enid Feldman, Florence Johnson, Ernest Gross, Annie Tepik Gruberg, Elias Kaiser, David Musafer, Dora Schulwolf, Jean Taffet, Lena Levin, Walter Keith Golson, and Robert Orange. And for Ernest, the Hebrew name Eliyahu ben Mordechai Tzvi was also listed. So, if there are any other names that anyone would like to add, okay, let us find Psalm 23 on 337. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God lays me down in green pastures, leads me to still waters, renews my life, guides me in right paths, for that is God's way. Though I walk through a valley as dark as death, I fear no evil. For you, God, are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in full view of my foes. You anoint my head with oil. My cup is overflowing. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Afto ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti bebeit Adonai le'orech yamim. And let's see about announcements for this coming week. We'll do Mishra Beirach tomorrow. Let's see, weekly calendar, here we go. Rabbi's on vacation and I will be covering services for a month. No minyan on the 14th or the 17th, and services are at 6 next Friday evening. We have some birthdays: Rhonda Blitz, Corrine Capolotto, Barry Ehrlich, and Fern Shinbaum. Anything else that we should be announcing? We're good? Okay, well, let us finish off with Yigdal on 62. Yigdal Elohim Chai v'yishabach nimsa v'yenei del metziuto echad v'yen yachid k'yichudo ne'lam v'gam ein sof le'achduto ein lo demud haguf v'yeino guf lo naharoch elav gedushato Kamon lekol davar asher nivra, Rishon v'yein reshit reshito, Hino adon olam v'kol no tzar, Yoreh gedulato malkudo, Shava nevuado netano, El anshe segulato v'tifarto, Lo kam b'Yisrael k'Moshe od navi, Umabit et temunato, Torah et Natan le'am, Torah et Natan le'amo el, al yad nevi o ne'aman beito, lo yachalifa el, v'lo yamir dato le'olamim le'zulato, sofe v'yodea sitarenu mabit le'sof davar b'kadmato, Gomel ish chesed k'mivalo, norein rasharagad rishado, Yishlach l'gates yamin, Meshichenu, Livdot mechaki keith Yeshuato, Meitim Yechayael, Berov chasdo, Baruch Harei Hashem tehilado, Medim Yechayel Berokasto Baruch Aread Shem Tehillah. Shabbat Shalom, y'all, and hope to see some people tomorrow morning. Stay safe out there.